lift up kind of a situation. So all the four of them have their areas of expertise, and they've been kind of helping you talking through a few things as we see now. The master of ceremony today is going to be Vinod Kenny. He is a Thai board member. He's been an entrepreneur and an investor himself. And Vinod basically comes from a CFO kind of background. He's been an entrepreneur in two ventures in the US where he kind of helped them list and he also started the IAN fund over here. He was part of the Avishkar Group fund. He also started an advisory service company. And can I request all of you to please mute? And Vinod, over to you. And folks, the format is going to be like this. We're going to have a few discussions, say for about half an hour, 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Post that, we will open up to audience Q&A. And please do type in your questions then. And then we will have someone ask all the four panelists the questions, and all your questions of the post-lockdown situation can be answered. Over to you, Vinod.
Thank you, Naveen. It's a pleasure to be here and to sort of moderate this panel and sort of discuss the challenges and the opportunities that are now sort of going to be arising with the COVID-19 crisis coming to a new phase and with the lockdown gradually being lifted. So folks, good afternoon to all of you. Before we get started, I will sort of very briefly introduce Peachtree Management Advisors and myself. I mean, Naveen sort of gave an introduction to me. I happen to also be part of the Thai Mumbai Board of Trustees, also an entrepreneur, run a VC fund, and I also run a boutique consulting company called Peachtree Management Advisors. And within Peachtree Management Advisors, we primarily focus on finance transformation and finance effectiveness, growth advisory, CFO advisory, as well as accounting and controllership automation services. Our clients tend to be both large and small. We work with multinationals, primarily advising them and managing their finance function, to venture-backed companies that have raised money from private equity or venture funds and want us to help them with, one, the finance function, but also helping them navigate and get ready for the next round of capital raising that they're doing. And then, of course, we also sort of have worked with companies, especially family-owned companies that are going through a transition, which have sort of moved on to raising private equity. We've also sort of done work with family businesses that have sort of been bought over by private equity, and we sort of have stepped in to help them sort of re-engineer the finance function as well as the operations aspect. A lot of our focus is on finance and operations. But a fairly significant amount of our time also is focused on growth advisory, where we sort of help some of our clients with strategies around how do you really sort of optimize revenues, how do you sort of look at expansion, how do you sort of look at partnerships, and what are the ways for you to sort of be able to really grow your business. And in most of those cases, our experience and expertise of having worked with multiple companies over a long period of time sort of comes into being an advantage for us to sort of leverage. Having said that, today's topic is on sort of surviving and thriving in a post-corona world. And today we will sort of focus on one aspect of that, and that is operations. As the lockdown sort of is gradually lifted, and there is sort of a gradual opening of the economy and the businesses, it is a time for hope, but also for caution. And I'm sure a lot of people who are sort of in lockdown were sort of ecstatic that it was almost like they sort of gained freedom. It is also sort of not a new, it's a different kind of a normal, right? So it's not going back to the pre-COVID normal. The end of the lockdown will not spell a return to the old normal, nor will it be universal, right? So the opening will take on different shapes with different businesses, and the way each business sort of handles this will also sort of be different. But the speed at which they'll sort of also sort of open and get back to normal will also sort of be different. Of course, the virus still sort of lurks. The vaccination is still some ways away. But at the same time, people sort of want to be able to go out there and really start building and expanding and regrowing their businesses. So in that situation, one of the things that we have sort of been increasingly talking to our clients and advising them is how can companies navigate this environment, especially in the next few months, as restrictions are not only loosened but new opportunities arise. So, like I said, it's one of hope but also of caution, and the hope is the fact that there are now new opportunities that will emerge in this post-corona crisis, and some of those are the opportunities that you as organizations and entrepreneurs should be able to leverage. And our focus today is going to be on one aspect of that, which is to sort of talk about operations. Subsequent sessions will talk about partnerships and fundraising. We'll talk about financial management as well. But this one will try and focus primarily on operations and people issues. With me on the panel, I've got Alok Ghosh. I also have my partners, Francis, as well as Mani. So before we get started on this discussion, gentlemen, why don't you all take a minute to introduce yourselves, and then we can start off with the conversation. Alok, why don't you start first?
Yeah, so this is Alok here. I hope all of you can hear and see me. See, unlike Vinod, I have a background in the corporate world. So I have spent a lot of time, maybe about 10 years, in two Mahindra companies called Tech Mahindra and Mahindra Holidays as Deputy CFO and CFO. Then I have also been in the Reliance Group in Reliance Communication. So almost about 30 years experience after completing my cost accountancy and company secretary, and worked across sectors, as I said, in the telecom, hospitality, but primarily a lot in the IT services space. Worked across 3 cities, also been a global CFO of a US-based software company held by a private equity from India. For the last 1.5 years, we have been working and also in partnership with Vinod on across various companies, as Vinod has mentioned, both in the IT service, commercial real estate, NGO, advising them on strategy, working with them as a team on financial development and stuff like that. So that is what we have done. So I had about 30 years executive experience across companies, like I mentioned, including Philips India, the Mahindras, Reliance, and then for the last 1.5 years working as an advisory capacity in the CFO services in the strategic domain. So in brief, that is what it is. Currently, I'm in Bombay. I'm speaking from Bombay.
Okay, thanks, Alok. Francis, just a minute to introduce yourself.
Okay, hello guys. This is Francis. I'm basically a chartered accountant, a CA/CS CWA by qualification. I have about 20 plus years of corporate experience. Worked in companies across the Mahindra Group with Alok there, and also with some other companies like Capgemini, UST Global, and so on. Predominantly again in the IT space, but worked at various levels in the finance domain. I was in the US for about 5 years, in India at multiple places, Pune, Kerala, and so on and so forth as well. Now and subsequently served as CFO in a couple of startup companies wherein there were Ps and VCs invested into. So good experience with the startup space there as well. Formed Finadvisors with Alok a couple of years back, and after that there's been no turning back. So we provide CFO services to small and medium clients, and predominantly focus on working with them and enabling their growth and taking them to the next level. So it has been a wonderful journey thereafter. So look forward to communicating with you guys as well. Mani, over to you.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mani. I'll keep it very short. So I'm a multi-sector finance and a people leader. That's how I'd like to introduce myself. I worked in about 7 or 8 sectors, starting with steel and then chemical, FMCG, telecom, pharma, and for about 20 or 25 years to be precise. I've reported to committees on the board, and I've had teams reporting to me from across the globe. While that on the one side, I won't dwell too much on that. I think if the domain expertise or domain knowledge that I've picked up from this 2.5 decade is X. I think what has been the learning in the last 4 years working with small companies and as Francis and Alok said, SMEs and thereabouts, family-owned business. I think that learning and that operational intensity has been probably around 4x. I think it's a completely different world, the world I connect to. I think with a lot of lateral thinking, a lot of creation based on new ideas, business models based on new ideas. So pretty much work with Vinod, and we are part of Peachtree and render again CFO service, which could have various adjuncts to it, and we'll talk about that now. Vinod has already explained. I am also a few more things. I do write a lot of articles. I've also authored a book on risk management, which is available on Amazon. And that's about me. And look forward to this session and the Q&A that follows. Thanks.
Thank you, Mani. That was actually a good segue to talk about the sort of the challenges and the opportunities post this crisis. So as I sort of was started by the introduction, I sort of talked about the fact that this is a time for hope, but also a time for caution. And one of the things that I think a lot of people sort of want to really understand is now that the lockdown has been gradually lifted, and several industries, almost all industries, have the ability to go back and relaunch and restart services. What are the things that they should actually be looking at it from an operational perspective? One is to sort of think about operations. The people issues and the people perspective, the resources, because some of those resources may be limited. The third issue is, of course, supply chain, because the supply chain that existed prior to the crisis may not necessarily be the same post the crisis. Fourth is customer expectations would have changed, which also means how do I really make sure that the product or the service that I'm actually providing to the customer still meets those expectations, and I continue to actually have a positive customer experience. And finally, also to sort of keep in mind, what are the opportunities that I can still continue to leverage, making sure that my operations continues to be efficient and lean, and also sort of to put all of this in perspective in view of the fact that this is still a pandemic and a global pandemic that is still ravaging the world. Safety of people and safety of the organization as a whole to be kept perspective. So with that in mind, Alok, can I sort of get your perspective, or at least get started with how would you sort of tomorrow, as the CFO of the company, when they said, well, we're opening up and we're going to get started, what are the initial things that you sort of really start thinking about and sort of saying, what are the timelines and what are the various aspects that I want to really think about and start working on?
Right, Vinod. So, we, as I said, we have already been working with few startups and private equity invested companies. So I would just say that the two C's we are looking at, and we are not looking at it today. We started right from April to look at it. Is the CFO function has become more strategic function where you actually work with the business and see how you take the business forward. So, I have interacted across a cross section of our client customers, and I can see that over a period, say what it was in April is not the same what it is in June. So people's expectation or customer expectations, if you see the service companies have substantially changed. So one of the things which, most of the, companies, startups, family businesses, and I'm sure they must be doing this, is to be in touch with your regular customers and see how their expectation is changing. So one big transition which I have seen in the, services sector is outcome-based pricing, outcome-based, commercials. So customers are more and more getting into two aspects, and they really want to understand that. One is, what differentiation are you going to make from your competitor? Number one. And it is not only on pricing. Pricing is one of the factors, but what quality, what difference do you make compared to your competitor? Number two, can I move into a space where I actually move with you more, with a small fixed component, but more on an outcome based result? I think, one thing which people should look at is certainly from a team perspective, how can they really help in both transitioning the team to be more effective on an outcome based output, and number two, what kind of commercials you really work out for potential customers, which is win-win for both. So that is one. The other thing which is very, very critical, and I'm sure all of you must have already taken into account, is cash is king. And cash is king in this, is always been king, but in this scenario, it has moved a little above that. So one aspect, and the winners will really be the ones who will be able to convert and who will know how to convert the fixed expenses into variable. See, there will be various models for different companies in different industries, but this is one aspect which the COVID problem has really shown us. So how do you really move into your fixed costs into a variable component, variable cost kind of a situation? Because capital, has always been a constraint in every sphere. Now in this current environment, capital will be even a much bigger constraint. So expecting money to flow in, whether in the form of debt, irrespective of the 3 lakh crore which has been announced, because many companies may not even qualify for that. So capital stringency will be there. So a lot of internal administrative management has to be there, where you know how to convert your fixed costs into variable. And whether we like it or not, in whatever way, small companies, family owned businesses, they have to know what are the levers in the business, what are the metrics they must see to see that they are working efficiently to move some of these parameters, both on the customer front and the variable cost front. The other thing which, from an operational perspective, is the ability to forecast. If you don't have a forecasting, and I'm not saying that have a very elaborate mechanism of forecasting, but the ability of the promoter to see what is going to happen in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months should be there, because that forecasting mechanism is actually very important, by which you can move your company into the next steps, because it is not only the customer, but even your employees would be involved at this point of time. So business metrics, to some extent, in a very small way, forecasting will be very, very critical. The other aspect is, how do we start people who are in offices? Health will be, on the one hand, we are talking of variable costs. I'm sure there are a lot of companies which have uh, you know talk to the employees about what they can afford, what they cannot afford. There is another segment, a lot of companies are talking to landlords. Some have been successful in reducing the rent, some have been not. So keeping that in mind, how do you move ahead in the next, so move 3 months at a time, have a forecast for 3 months and take decisions on a quarterly basis as to what next steps you can really take, is what I would say. The other more important aspect, and this could be, on companies which depend on supply chain. So I would assume, with the lockdown lifting to some extent, that will get released, and it will open up to some extent, and the problems which a lot of companies were facing will get reduced on that front. But that is some area which really needs to be looked into. And of course, employee health would be the other area which a lot of companies have to look into with the government guidelines. So these would be my opening remarks, and we can get into details moving forward, Vinod.
Thank you, Alok. So Francis, the question that I also wanted to add to what I was sort of asking Alok, was to sort of also look at it from a services perspective at not only the supply chain, because services, the supply chain would primarily be people, but also to sort of then think about it from the perspective of, is there a certain trade-off that I actually have to do? Is there a certain amount of resource planning that I have to do in this scenario? And how do I sort of keep that in consideration, considering the fact that the people issues that I've actually got have also changed, because some of the people that I had earlier may not necessarily be there, or I may have to actually pull in new resources and those resources may not be available. Or two, demand may not necessarily take off right away. So how do I really plan this? How would you sort of deal with some of those issues, especially when you start off restarting operations now, and people issues become a fairly important aspect of it?
Sure. Thanks, Vinod. I think you really touched upon some of those key elements out there with regard to operations, be it employee matters or even with regard to your operational cost, whether it is the logistical part or the whole tracking part of the forecast. I think some of these aspects were touched
Francis, you have to
upon by.
speak up a little louder. You're very faint.
Is that better? I just hope so.
Yeah, this is better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so I guess the whole idea will be to actually learn from what all happened during the lockdown and make sure that we actually try to embody that into our business plans itself going forward, because some of these aspects that we have seen during the lockdown, whether it is the postponement of maybe the mobility expenses, a lot of these infrastructure costs which kind of proved out to be redundant now in these lockdown circumstances, maybe a bunch of these costs which we used to consider it as fixed cost itself earlier have now kind of become variable cost in a way that we all have learned that we can operate without these fixed cost elements also. So these are learnings that have come out will help to actually revisit our business, like Alok mentioned, forecasting down, understand where we are business projections is possibly expectations and kind of come up with multiple options. I clearly identified with what are the triggers which will make you go from one plan to the other, because agility is the right now we need to make it start semi company can actually move from one plan to the other in as seamless manner as possible, because people who come out of this lockdown one obvious so is the loan. We have to go with a mindset, start the whole engagement. So predominantly, it may take a few months for us to be actually back on track if, with regard to any business is concerned, but we can definitely get there. So some of these things to keep in mind, like you voiced out, is definitely the employee engagement part. All the people are now coming back from a lockdown. Their mindset is different. The way we involved with them to get their productivity in the last few months has been a different approach. Managing expectations vis-a-vis have been and what the next 3 to 6 months will be is an important aspect. Maybe HR will play a role. The founders out here will play a key role. Conserving should be as critical as possible. Obviously, a lot of things will need to be done in order to bring the efficiency out. IT could play a very key role actually. With lockdown has taught us all those things to say that okay, technology has to be enabled. Obviously, it was always there at the top of our minds all the time, but now it's kind of like Alo mentioned, customer was the king. Possibly IT is also kind of evolved to be a much bigger player. So we need to possibly approach our customers and vendors, everyone in a much more tech friendly domain to understand them, approach them, train them, and so on and so forth. One important aspect out here could be around maybe the unit economics as well. When we play out our plans and build out all our forecasts and stuff, maybe 6 months back may not be the new norm which we you understand what kind of pricing parameter that we can the market, because I believe I have a different company we touched on earlier, where we so build it out that you need to position customer. And I'm obviously, I think, try to be as frugal as possible. If possible, try to outsource things and try to get a little bit more flexibility in your plan A and plan B to get the outcome based efficiencies that Alok talked about, the agility and the stuff, so that you can conserve your cash resources and you get a more visibility into the future, so that the more you sustain, the more you have the chances to actually make it good.
Thanks, Francis. So, Mani, coming to you, you sort of been right now in the midst of working with clients who have not only restarted operations, but also sort of very aggressively looking at revenue optimization opportunities. Now, as customer expectations have also sort of changed, what are some of the measures that some of these companies, especially companies that are sort of have raised some money, but also sort of have severe restraint from a capital flow or a working capital flow, cash flow issues, sort of doing in order to make sure that they optimize their operations on one hand, while they sort of go ahead and look at some of these new revenue opportunities, as well as the expectations that the customer has, because the customer expectations are, of course, paramount, but those also sort of involve a lot around trust as well as safety.
Yeah.
So, some of the clients that you've sort of been working with very specifically on the restarting, if you can just touch upon some of them very briefly, that will be helpful.
Yeah. So just to start on a slightly lighter vein, Alok said customer is king, was king, is emperor now. Sorry, cash is king, it is emperor now. I would say customer has always been the emperor. Okay, so so just to put that, because you mentioned, on operations, I think one thing, and Francis elaborated a lot on that, so I won't repeat that, is the importance of retaining customers, because getting customers is one, and those kind of course, it varies from company to company. If you're in a very monopolistic position, then of course that's one way of dealing customers. But if you're a highly competitive business where you could lose a customer just like that, I think customer retention, I would say, becomes more important than customer acquisition in this way. That's just to start it. But before I come down to Vinod's point, I'll just spend 1 minute just talking about the different type of businesses. So there are obviously two kinds of businesses. One which gets negatively impacted, and one or three. One gets positively, and the other is kind of there flat. Now, even the one. Interestingly, one of our clients is a company which has got positively impacted, by the way. Okay, and one of the clients is negatively impacted. Again, this is interesting point, and people should take note of it. When you say negatively impacted, there are two connotations to it. One is the loss of a calendar period. To me, that is not so much of an impact. That's an impact to all, right? Which means 3 months of this year is gone. To me, that is not a negative impact. That is just postponement of your good times. You planned your good time in April. Your good time is postponed to August or whatever. That's one impact. The other impact is, of course, the industry itself is impacted. Like some sectors like travel and tourism, probably you'll have a different set of strategies for them. So this is just something I wanted to set the context. Now, coming to Vinod's specific question on optimizing operations and revenue and customer, I will add one more point there, cost, although Alok has talked about it. I think the first duty before even we get into operation is, again, Alok mentioned it, but I'm continuing it so that the thread is maintained, is forecast, right? I think we can tear to shreds all the earlier forecasts, rosy forecasts made, and start with a good forecast which you can really put your, your hand to your heart and kind of say, this is a workable forecast, and have a very clear, almost 90 to 100% visibility on the immediate future. Yeah, because if you forecast wrong, the problem is different times, and today is so in a good time, even if you you forecast big numbers and you kind of build capacity, the downside is not big. Money is anyway available, right? So you would anyway have access to credit for over capitalizing your business. The problem now is if you over forecast, you will not have access to the capital which you think you need, because there's no money in the market. Or the government comes and announces, as if I'm an SME, I go to a bank and show my SME, that Aadhaar SME card, I'll get 3 lakhs or 3 crores to my bank account. The reality is very, very different from that. Anyway, I don't want to get into funding, with that's a different session. So first is the forecast number, right? I think the second bit is the business modeling part, which I think Alok mentioned, and I think someone else also mentioned. I think get the business modeling right. Maybe some of your models, if they take too much of cash, if the cash, it's a high cash burn model. Let's say B2C model. Someone can put off a B2C and focus more on B2B in the interim. That is one way, in my view, of surviving through this period, and as Francis used the right word, being as close to your cash chest as possible without actually holding on to it. I mean, you spend on something which can generate and return the cash faster back to you. I think that is the one short point I had on business modeling. And cost optimization is what I want to dwell a little bit more on. I think this is a touchy topic, very touchy topic, particularly on manpower. So here I would like to say that definitely those manpower and those processes which immediately are not value adding definitely needs to be looked through a microscope. I don't want to go further in it. All of you understand what I mean. And there are various innovative ways of doing it. People can go on a long leave and those kind of things. And even processes. For example, if a business has got 4 or 5 processes, I know a company which has declared my purchase has gone on a holiday. It actually declared. So there's no buying, no stores, no purchase is going to manage with the inventory as on. So these have been interesting strategies. You need to find out if you have only so much you can spend on, right? So where you will put the money? Would you put the money on sales, or would you put the money on customer service? Some industry may actually say, or some company may actually say, I don't want to do anything. I just want to maintain my customer. Good call. If you feel in the short run that's going to work well. Or somebody may say, I don't want to do anything. I just want to keep working on my product, and I don't want to do anything else. So that's the operational piece. You need to decide out of, let's say, production and customer service, HR, finance, and a couple of other things, which is where you're going to put the money on. It is like a mutual fund. You have 5 equities, 5 stocks. Which stock you're going to back up most? I think those kind of calls also have to be taken. And revenue optimization, coming to the point, I think holding on to your customer is the key, and look for innovative means. One of the companies that Vinod and I are associated has actually taken up this opportunity by Horns, and he's a IoT platform company, and is actually approaching more companies are actually coming to him, and therefore he's also able to reach out. Plus, he's also able to reach out through his partners, and he's also getting a lot of interests and leads. People are looking at converting a transaction mode to an outcome mode, right? Because Alok mentioned people are to hold on to their cash, and this platform supports that. So he's positively impacted, right? So, so I think that is one fantastic revenue optimization tool for them. To me, another very high-level statement, though it could be, I think look at innovative ways, especially through tech enablement. I think if that can be done, that is something we should explore. I know a couple of e-learning companies, my friends who are actually doing that. They are really looking at good prospects ahead. Many of them are converting their physical centers to e-learning centers to cash in this craze of Zoom and all Google Meets and all that. So he's taking that. So that's a very good example. All tech companies are actually seeing good times. So yeah, and customer, just to conclude on that point, I think customer has never been more important in my opinion, almost equal to cash, particularly in a competitive industry. I think customer has never been more important. To hold on to the customers and give them discounts, excite him to be on your platform, and I think yeah. So that is one last thing I would like to say. Over to you, Vinod.
Is Vinod gone? Vinod, we can't hear you. You're on mute. No. Yeah.
Thank you.
You were on mute, Vinod. So no one heard you till now.
No, I sort of went on mute and, I could not unmute myself. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mani. And so one question that sort of I had, and I wanted everybody to sort of give me a sort of a 30-second answer, is the fact that, in a changed environment like this, it's very hard to forecast. I mean, all of you talked about forecasting, and all of you talked about sort of being able to really look at it, because on one hand, resources are not necessarily what they're going to be. So you actually have to be able to balance your resources, but also still make sure that you sort of meet customer demand. But at the same time, customer demand is not something that you can sort of forecast with some level of confidence, considering the fact that there's a fairly high level of uncertainty. In that scenario, how would you sort of really look at forecasting, and what are the factors that you sort of taken as inputs to actually be able to come up with something that's credible? So 30 seconds is what I want from.
Yeah. Vinod, to give you a very fast and quick answer. I would not say that we absolutely don't know a customer demand. Of course, customer demand for every size of company is under stress right now. But if we don't know what is the next 3 months customer demand, then being in business itself becomes a risk. So what I would do in that circumstance is take the most conservative view of what we think, because if we don't know what is going to happen in the 3 months, it's virtually a lockdown of the business. So take the most conservative view and manage to deliver within that conservative view, and also keep the cost structure within that, so that at least I remain at a break-even level for the next 3 to 6 months before I can take off.
Francis?
No, so obviously, I think conservative or aggressive is something that I would leave the promoter to actually decipher. Obviously, you need to conserve on the cash aspect of things as far as the end use of the cash is concerned, whether he really wants to actually invest into the marketing to capitalize on the dearth of products in the market right now and go a little more aggressive on the revenues. I think that's a call. But obviously, like I voiced out earlier, I think the promoter needs to have a clear vision on how much he is willing to spend and how he will take a call on the customers. And in case, for whatsoever reason, and this will have to be a quick action also, and agility is key from a startup company per se. So if he does not see the results in, say, a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever he decides for himself, then he should be able to divert into a plan B kind of an operation and immediately take recourse to another action set itself. But definitely, I think aggressive or conservative is like each business calls. So I leave it to the founders to decide for themselves how conservative they are.
Okay. Money, just
very quick one just to add on. I think first the impact has to be assessed. That is A, and is the demand already fallen? So we are presuming that they're all getting negatively impacted. Need not be so. That's, I think, part of what Francis said. So that is the piece that I think the think tank is to come together and say, hey, this has hit, this is where we are, this is the cash I have, and these were my plans, and this required this much cash. Now this has impacted my customer collection is going to come down, because the existing customers are not going to pay because they are asking for deferment and things like that. I'm not going to get fresh customers, so therefore I'm left with this. If that is the scenario, I think then the only one way out is Don't look at any expensive plans. I think, and let's say for a production company, you don't buy new inventory unless you exhaust the existing inventory. If the mood is really a downturn, but it again depends on what the outlook for that company is, as has been assessed. And the forecasting is just an exercise which converts this think tank or this idea of how the impact has, how it has impacted into numbers. So it's actually just converting that into numbers. The idea is you should not be caught napping. You should not suddenly discover that you have no cash to pay salary next month, right? So that should not happen, and that's where the entire piece on forecasting and all comes in.
So finally, one of the things that I wanted to touch upon, and these are important aspects, is the aspect of, one is the demand piece, which is where your customer comes in. The other aspect is your supply, which is, your manufacturing capabilities or your servicing capabilities if you're a service organization, and the people and the supply chain that's absolutely essential for it. Right now, those have sort of been severely impacted and would have changed during the lockdown, especially supply chains. If you're reliant on a bunch of suppliers for products, especially let's say you are in the restaurant business, or you are even in manufacturing, where you actually have to get a whole bunch of raw materials from others, and that supply chain has been impacted. Second is the fact that the people that you actually have, some of them have left and moved on. There has been a fairly significant number of people who sort of migrated or moved back to their hometowns. Now, people may also be, that skill issue may also be there. In that scenario, with those kind of limited resources, how do you sort of ensure, at least in the short term, to be able to still continue to meet customer expectations? And what is the best way of being able to sort of balance these two outs, the supply chain challenge as well as the people challenge? A short answer to this will be good. So, Mani, you can. I'll start with you now.
I can take this. So I'm giving the example actually of a company without, of course, mentioning the name. So they had a supply chain from China. I don't have to say anything further, right? So they had one of the key raw material supplier was China. So now what happens to them? Do they close down? Probably that product line will close down, but they were doing other things also. I think look for alternate sources, easier said than done. It will take time. So that's where the entire thing, what Francis, me and Alok said about tightening and keeping very good hold of cash, so that by the time alternate sources are developed, you kind of have enough. But if your customer is dependent on your import and the import only comes from one particular supplier in the world, nothing much can be done about it, and especially if it's a project kind of a thing, which is what this client of mine is doing, bad luck. I think project gets extended and all that. Otherwise, obviously look for new sources and alternatives. It may take time, buy that time and conserve your cash till that time. Short answer. And which is the other part you mentioned, Vinod? Yeah, so this is on people. The supply chain. Yeah, on people is actually the toughest, if you ask me, because you suddenly feel that you may not need so many people because so many projects are going away because of the earlier point which I made, or orders are shrinking. You don't need so many. You need sales in, suppose you had 5 segments and 2 segments are dead because of this. You don't need salespeople in the 2 segments. You may need in the other 3. You may need more people in the other 3. So overall, it may be same, right? Or it could be less or more, as the case may be. Now, this is a tough call. And here, I think I would like to say, and Alok and Francis can please chip in with their views. Don't hesitate on taking a call. Don't slow poison. I think if calls have to be taken on people, or as I said, when I say people, it's not just employee people. I mean consultants. I mean contracts, and whatever contracts you've given to customer. Landlords is also people in that sense. I mean any input service provider in that sense. I can don't hesitate taking a call. I think sit across the board, work aggressively on those lines of cost, and commit to only what you can spend from the available little kitty you have. Very, very simple. I know this company which had a OPEX of 73 lakhs a month. They are at 36 lakhs in 2 months. And nobody is unhappy. I mean, okay, people who are leaving may have some thoughts, but it's okay. Things are going on fine. 50% cut, not 10%, 15%. So, and they're managing. They've lost a few orders. They're getting few more. Where the supply chain impacted them, they lost the order. Or the other orders they're getting, they're able to service.
So I know in the interest of time, I mean, we'd have loved to continue, but I think we'll continue this with other aspects, especially when it starts coming to financial management, as well as revenue optimization. We'll also talk about partnerships and alliances, and of course on funding as well in subsequent sessions. So I'm actually going to try and summarize this and then open it up for questions which have sort of been coming in. So folks who are on this, I think here is one thing that I sort of wanted to sort of leave you with, and I think this is a very simple yes or no kind of a plan to start off with. And I say this because this is something that I've been sort of doing with a lot of my clients, right? Is to sort of say, how do I really get a head start? And now that operations have already started, if you have not done this, this is something that you need to do, right? Is to sort of just go with a yes or no checklist. And the yes or no checklist is essentially going to start off with saying, do I know my cash and liquidity positions? How much cash do I have? What kind of credit do I have? What kind of liquidity do I currently have? And how long will that last for? The second is, do I know my labor position? How many people are working with me? How many people will come back and work with me when I start full blown? And what are the key roles and the key responsibilities, especially with regard to both production as well as with regard to customer front facing, that are sort of going to be lacking, and which I may need to either fill, or I may need to find other alternatives. Then the third is to sort of say, have I assessed my supply chain and my demand? Do I know both my supply as well as my demand? And I've actually sort of been able to make a realistic assumption as well as forecast around it. Have I sort of actually factored in what my production right now is and my production capacity? And using that, can I sort of say, how do I sort of optimize my production schedule? And this goes across for both services as well as for manufacturing companies, right? And then finally, the other one to say is, do I understand the trade-offs? What are the trade-offs that I actually have to sort of take in order to be able to optimize my flow? And then finally, for me to sort of say, do I know my customer well enough for me to be able to meet the changing expectations or the changed environment that the customer is now going to be coming back to me? So these to me are some of the basic, and this is something that we have sort of been talking extensively with clients. These are actually like a checklist that we sort of go through and make sure that you as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as the CXO of any organization, sort of go through this checklist and says, I know these things. And based on this, can I actually come up with a fairly detailed relaunch map, right? And that relaunch map will essentially then start going into all the aspects. How do I sort of go into relaunching by product? How do I sort of look at it from a customer perspective? What will it have in terms of supply chain, production? What are the kind of marketing aspects that I need to take? Will whatever I was spending on marketing earlier change? Is my marketing message and the message that I want to live with everybody else also sort of change in a bit? So I think these are some of these important aspects that sort of go into the relaunch plan. And one of the things that I also wanted to make sure that everybody sort of kept in mind is the fact that decisions have to be made pretty fast. And then if things don't work for you, actually be able to have the speed with which you can actually make changes to that. Be flexible and be nimble, I think, are two key words that have sort of emerged from this whole crisis. Is the fact that unless you sort of are nimble enough and flexible enough, survival and thriving becomes a challenge. So if you have to sort of survive and also to thrive, being, I think, nimble, being flexible, and being open to opportunity and is, I think, of importance. And that is what I want to sort of leave this session with for you. And if nothing else, I think those are important things for you to sort of keep in mind. See, I mean, this next few weeks will be a lot of unknowns, right? There will be a situation where you will sort of get into, you will sort of restart, and there'll be a lot of factors that will be nebulous for a while. you'll also be, far away from achieving 100% operational capability. You'll also find that, your supply chain links are broken. You'll also find that, people issues are going to be a challenge. You may not necessarily have all the people as well. You may also find that certain markets are still restricted, even though it's partially open. So within all of these, you still have to be in a position to operate. And our conversation today and what we want to continue to do in the next 3 weeks is to sort of be able to talk about some of this and sort of see how we can actually help you to be able to address some of these challenges, and for you to sort of be able to come out of this way ahead, and for you to sort of be able to not only operate in this new normal, but for you guys to be able to continue to grow and expand it. So with this, I'm just going to open this up for maybe 2 to 3 questions because I know we have another session right after this. And in the interest of time, I'll just take 3 questions and then answer those. So Kushal, do you want to? Yeah.
Yes. So there is one question that says, because of shortage of laborers, how does a manufacturing firm optimize its resources and keep up the cost?
So, who wants to take this question? I mean, I know this is a question that I know manufacturing companies will all have because there's going to be a shortage of labor.
Yeah. See, Vinod, I can go ahead, this is Alok, to just give my thought process. See, in this scenario, labor problem will be there, and this is a problem which is not a very local problem. It is a problem which the government of India is looking into. So, there are 2-3 things which I would have looked into. One is, we are looking at a partial opening of, whether it is a workplace or the manufacturing sector. So I would probably first look at 2 things: whether I have unsold inventory, which is already available with me, which I can get into the market. Number 2, in a small way, I would also look at which of my products, if I have 2-3 products, which is more profitable and which I can make with even a smaller resource force. And I'm assuming that when a question like this is asked, the company concerned may not be getting the enough laborers right now, because that's the situation of the migrant situation which we face. So, get whatever you have available in your city. And I'm sure with the economy as it is, the government itself will be forced to do something for a reverse migration. So and they can't take too much of time on that. It will happen sooner than later.
Yes, just to add to that, I know for a fact that there has been reverse migration, and apparently it's starting to pick up pace. And this is something that I've also sort of heard from people not only in manufacturing but also in agriculture, especially people who sort of run large agricultural farms and sort of rely on migrant labor, where the migrant labor is also left. A lot of them are starting to see that. I think this is going to be a short-term phenomenon that is going to be there. And I know it's a dual challenge, especially when you have to deal one with costs and also having to try and keep costs low, but at the same time try and get resources. So I hope that answered that question. We'll be happy to sort of take that offline and give you a more detailed answer. Next question, Kushal.
So they say the things are still changing day by day, right? How can we forecast? How can we take a forecast which is doable when the things are keep on changing day by day?
I think, yeah, I'll come here. I'll give a very, very short answer. I think that is why, if you see, Alok said this in the beginning, and I like that point he put. He said the focus should not be for a year or even 9 months. It should be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, right? And you roll the carpet as you walk. Don't commit to don't make any large commitments. If you're talking from a point of view of demand, I don't know, the question is an overall question, but if you're talking from the point of view of demand, forecast the least sales to happen, if that is the question, and therefore back it up with least resources and least cost, right? Rather than forecast high, which is what I said earlier, and then not being able to meet, you produce a lot of quantity and then you're stuck with that. Okay, so I think keep a very short forecast and keep updating daily every 2 days, 3 days, and roll the carpet as you walk,
Next.
That's it, I guess.
Yeah. Was that the last question, Kushal?
Yes.
Okay. So, folks, thank you for participating in the session. We have a one-on-one mentoring session right after this. If you sort of are interested, please apply for that. We'll be happy to spend some time. And if there are specific questions that you still have, please reach out to Kushal, or Kushal will reach out to you and share contact information, and we'll be happy to sort of address those questions and answer them separately as well. And for us to sort of also be able to take any additional information that you want to provide, and based on that, for us to sort of be able to, try and see how we can help, help all of you. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.